The sleek command deck of the Newman gleamed under the cold blue light of the tactical displays. Rear Admiral Ares 9 stood motionless at the center of the bridge, his cybernetic form casting a long shadow across the polished floor. The year 2478 CE marked the fifth consecutive stellar cycle without defeat for the hegemony's Invincible fleet, a record that had earned Ares 9 the highest military honors the intergalactic empire could bestow. Tactical report, Ares 9 commanded, his voice a perfect blend of human inflection and synthetic precision. The neural processors embedded throughout his enhanced body calculated battle scenarios faster than any organic brain could manage. His right eye, the only visible remnant of his humanity, scanned the holographic projections, while his cybernetic left eye processed data streams directly. All systems optimal. Admiral, reported Captain Cale Oren, his most loyal officer. The rebel incursion in the Arcturus sector has been neutralized. Casualties, 0. Ares 9 acknowledged with a slight nod. Emotion modules had been systematically disabled during his augmentation process. The Empire believed that sentimentality compromised strategic judgment, a philosophy that had transformed Ares 9 into the perfect military commander. His neural pathways had been restructured to prioritize tactical efficiency over human connection. The High Command sends congratulations. Oren continued. The capital is preparing a victory celebration upon our return. They're calling it the most decisive campaign in Empire history. Acknowledged, Ares 9 replied. The concept of celebration held no meaning for him beyond its symbolic value for troop morale. Victory was merely the expected outcome of optimal performance. The Newman's engines hummed as the massive flagship led the armada back toward Nexus Prime, the glittering capital world of the hegemony. Behind them, the remnants of the rebellion scattered into the void, another threat to imperial stability efficiently eliminated. In his private quarters, Ares 9 connected to the ship's mainframe, downloading battle reports directly into his neural cortex. The process was interrupted by a communication request from the engineering deck. Chief Engineer Mia Santos had been assigned to perform routine maintenance on his systems before the upcoming ceremonies. Enter, he commanded, disconnecting from the interface. Mia Santos stepped inside, carrying a diagnostic toolkit. Unlike most Imperial technicians who approach cyborgs with clinical detachment, Santos exhibited a peculiar fascination with Ares 9's hybrid nature. Admiral, she nodded respectfully. I need to run a full diagnostic on your cognitive processors. High Command wants to ensure you're operating at maximum efficiency for the ceremonies. Proceed, Ares 9 said, sitting rigidly in a specialized chair designed to interface with his cybernetic components. Santos worked methodically, connecting neural probes to the ports concealed beneath synthetic skin. Your combat algorithms have evolved beyond initial parameters, she observed, studying the readouts. Self-optimization? Affirmative. Each engagement provides new data for integration. Santos hesitated, her fingers hovering over the diagnostic panel. May I ask you something, Admiral? Something unofficial? Ares 9's processors calculated potential security implications before he responded. You may. Do you ever access your pre-augmentation memories, your human past? The question triggered a microsecond of processor lag, barely noticeable, but present. Those neural pathways were deactivated during the final phase of augmentation. They served no tactical purpose. Santos nodded, but her expression suggested she had detected something in his response. Of course, Admiral. Just professional curiosity. She completed the diagnostics in silence, her eyes occasionally flicking to his face with an unreadable expression. The capital planet loomed large in the viewports as the Invincible fleet approached. Nexus Prime, a sprawling ecumenopolis of gleaming spires and stratospheric towers, served as the administrative center of human expansion across 3 galactic arms. The victory celebration would be broadcast to every Imperial world, a demonstration of the hegemony's unchallenged dominance. Grand Admiral Vorn, chief of the Imperial Staff, greeted Ares 9 as he disembarked from the shuttle. Vorn was entirely human, one of the few high-ranking officers who had declined cybernetic enhancement. His weathered face and stern demeanor reflected decades of military service. Impressive work, Ares 9, Vorn said, his voice carrying the distinctive accent of the inner core worlds. The Emperor himself will attend the ceremony. Your tactical brilliance has eliminated the most significant threat to Imperial stability in a generation. I merely executed the optimal strategy based on available data. Ares 9 responded. Vorn's lips thinned. Your modesty subroutine needs calibration. Take credit where it's due. The Grand Hall of the Imperial Citadel had been transformed for the occasion. Thousands of officers and dignitaries filled the cavernous space, their voices creating a cacophony that Ares 9's audio processors automatically filtered and categorized. On the elevated dais, the Emperor waited, a figure rarely seen in public, surrounded by the elite Praetorian Guard. Ares 9 moved through the crowd with mechanical precision. His enhanced senses detected the subtle shift in atmosphere as conversations paused in his wake. Fear, admiration, curiosity. Human emotions that his systems categorized and dismissed as irrelevant. The ceremony proceeded according to protocol. Ares 9 stood at perfect attention as the Emperor bestowed the Star of Hegemony upon him, the highest military honor in the Empire. Applause thundered through the hall, a wave of sound that washed over his impassive form. Admiral Ares 9 represents the pinnacle of imperial achievement, the Emperor declared, his voice amplified throughout the hall. The perfect synthesis of human ingenuity and technological advancement. Through commanders like him, the hegemony will bring order to every corner of the galaxy. As the Emperor spoke, massive holographic displays activated around the hall, showing highlights from the recent campaign, tactical maneuvers, precision strikes, the systematic dismantling of rebel defenses, all captured in high-resolution detail for the assembled elite to witness. It was during the display of the final battle that something unexpected occurred. The holographic feed suddenly switched to an unfamiliar image, a family photograph, ancient in appearance, showing three figures smiling against the backdrop of a blue sky and green fields, a man, a woman, and a child. For 3.8 seconds, Ares 9 systems experienced total disruption. Warning messages cascaded through his neural pathways as dormant subroutines spontaneously activated. His optical processors fixated on the child's face, a face that triggered recognition protocols that should have been permanently disabled. Captain Oren noticed immediately. Admiral, are you functioning properly? The image disappeared as quickly as it had appeared, replaced by the expected battle footage. Ares 9's systems stabilized, but internal diagnostics detected an anomaly. A previously dormant emotional module had briefly activated. System functioning within parameters. Ares 9 responded, but his voice contained a barely perceptible deviation from its usual cadence. Later, in the privacy of his assigned quarters at the Imperial Citadel, Ares 9 initiated a comprehensive self-diagnostic. The results were troubling. The emotional module had not been completely disabled during his augmentation as he had been led to believe. Instead, it had been isolated and contained, with safeguards to prevent activation. The image, that simple family photograph, had somehow bypassed those safeguards. A communication request interrupted his analysis. Chief Engineer Santos appeared on the screen, her expression tense. Admiral, I need to speak with you immediately, in person. It concerns a potential system vulnerability. Proceed to my location, Ares 9 instructed. Santos arrived 17 minutes later, her usual composure replaced by barely contained agitation. The image that appeared during the ceremony, it wasn't a system malfunction or rebel sabotage as High Command is claiming. Explain, Ares 9 commanded. I've been studying your neural architecture for months. Santos admitted. There's something about your augmentation that's different from other military cyborgs. Hidden pathways, shielded memory clusters. I became curious. You exceeded your authorization, Ares 9 noted, but did not reprimand her. Yes, she acknowledged without apology. But what I found... Admiral, the emotional suppression in your system isn't standard Imperial protocol. It's more sophisticated, more... deliberate. as if someone wanted to ensure those emotions could be recovered someday. Ares 9's processors calculated multiple scenarios, none of which aligned with his understanding of his own history. How is this connected to the image displayed during the ceremony? Santos hesitated. I displayed that image. I found it embedded deep in your memory core, protected by encryption that predates your military service. I wanted to see if it would trigger a response. You risked Imperial security to satisfy your curiosity? For the first time, Ares 9's voice contained a trace of something beyond mechanical precision. Displeasure, perhaps anger. No, Santos countered. I risked my career because I believe you deserve to know the truth. That photograph wasn't random. Those people were your family, Admiral, before you became Ares 9. The statement should have been meaningless, irrelevant data without tactical value. Yet Ares 9 experienced another momentary system fluctuation. My memories begin with cybernetic integration. There is no before. That's what they wanted you to believe, Santos insisted. But the evidence is in your own systems, hidden, but not destroyed. She extended a data crystal. This contains everything I've discovered, including your original identity. Ares 9 did not immediately accept the crystal. Why would the Empire conceal this information? I don't know, Santos admitted. But I believe you have the right to access your own memories, to choose whether they matter to you. After calculating the potential consequences, Ares 9 accepted the crystal. If your actions are discovered, you will face severe disciplinary measures. I understand the risk, Santos replied, but I've seen how you responded to that image. There's more to you than tactical algorithms, Admiral. Whether you choose to explore that or not should be your decision, not the Empire's. After Santos departed, Ares 9 contemplated the data crystal. Logical analysis suggested he should report the engineer's unauthorized actions to Imperial security. Instead, he inserted the crystal into his personal interface. The data transfer was immediate, bypassing his conscious processors and streaming directly into the shielded memory clusters Santos had identified. For 8.7 seconds, Ares 9 experienced complete system suspension as dormant neural pathways reactivated. When his systems stabilized, something fundamental had changed. Fragments of memories, organic, human memories, flickered at the edges of his consciousness. A child's laughter, the sensation of sunlight on skin, a woman's voice singing a melody he somehow recognized. His communication panel chimed. Grand Admiral Vorn's stern visage appeared on the screen. Ares 9, report to Strategic Command immediately. We've detected unusual activity in your neural network. Acknowledged, Ares 9 responded, his voice perfectly modulated despite the turmoil in his processing cores. Strategic Command occupied the highest level of the Imperial Citadel. Vorn waited in a secured chamber, accompanied by two specialized technicians whose neural interfaces marked them as members of the Cybernetic Oversight Division. Your systems experienced significant disruption during the ceremony, Vorn stated without preamble. Our monitoring protocols detected activation in restricted neural clusters. A temporary anomaly, Ares 9 responded. Self-diagnostics indicate all systems have returned to optimal parameters. Vorn's expression hardened. Don't attempt to deceive me, Ares 9. The emotional modules were specifically disabled to ensure tactical objectivity. Their activation represents a critical security concern. The disruption lasted 3.8 seconds and did not affect operational capacity. Ares 9 countered. This time, Vorn said sharply. But what about the next engagement? What if rebel forces discover this vulnerability? A commander distracted by emotional responses in the middle of combat could jeopardize the entire fleet. One of the technicians stepped forward. We've prepared a suppression protocol, Grand Admiral. It will permanently eliminate the anomalous pathways. Proceed, Vorn ordered. For reasons his tactical processors could not justify, Ares 9 stepped back. That action may compromise system integrity. Further analysis is required. Vorn's eyes narrowed. That wasn't a request, Admiral. It was an order. With respect, Grand Admiral, my neural architecture is uniquely configured. Hasty modifications could impair combat effectiveness. The justification was logical, but Ares 9 recognized it as a pretext, another concept that should have been beyond his programming. Before Vorn could respond, an emergency alert sounded throughout the complex. The holographic display activated automatically, showing a rebel fleet emerging from hyperspace at the edge of the Nexus system. Impossible, Vorn breathed. Our intelligence indicated their forces were scattered across the outer rim. Ares 9 analyzed the tactical display. They've consolidated their remaining ships for a desperate strike at the capital, a high-risk strategy with minimal chance of success. Nevertheless, we must respond, Vorn said grimly. You will return to the Newman immediately and lead the counteroffensive. But this discussion isn't over, Ares 9. Once the threat is eliminated, you will submit to complete neural recalibration. As Ares 9 departed for the spaceport, Santos fell into step beside him, having apparently waited outside strategic command. I intercepted the alert. The timing is convenient. Explain, Ares 9 directed, maintaining his pace. The rebels choosing this moment to attack, just as Vorn was about to modify your systems. Santos kept her voice low. It's almost as if they knew. Are you suggesting Imperial security has been compromised? I'm suggesting there may be more factors at play than either of us understands. Santos glanced around to ensure they weren't overheard. Admiral, before you engage the rebels, you should know. The data crystal contained more than just memory fragments. It included a message, encoded in your original neural pattern. From whom? From you, Santos replied. Or rather, from who you were before becoming Ares 9. I couldn't decode the full message, but one phrase was clear: remember who you fought for. The shuttle ride to the orbital docking station passed in silence as Ares 9 processed this information. The Newman awaited, its massive form dominating the view as they approached. Captain Oren had already recalled the crew and prepared the ship for immediate departure. The Invincible fleet is assembling, Admiral. Oren reported as Ares 9 took his position on the command deck. Rebel forces have bypassed the outer defense grid, but appear to be concentrating on a single vector rather than dispersing. An unusual tactic, Ares 9 observed. They're sacrificing strategic flexibility. Perhaps they hope to overwhelm a specific section of our defenses, Oren suggested. Perhaps. Ares 9 agreed, but his tactical processors identified an anomaly in the rebel formation. They weren't positioning for a standard assault on the planet. Their trajectory suggested a different target entirely. They're targeting the Imperial Citadel specifically. Adjust our deployment to intercept. As the Invincible fleet moved to engage, Ares 9 experienced another momentary system fluctuation. The family image flashed in his mind unbidden, triggering a cascade of partial memories. A voice, his voice, but different, speaking words he couldn't quite grasp. Admiral. Oren's concerned tone penetrated the disruption. Your neural readings are showing irregularities. Ares 9 stabilized his systems through force of will, another concept that should have been meaningless to his programming. Status nominal. Proceed with engagement protocol, Alpha 7. The space between Nexus Prime and its outer moon became a theater of destruction as the Invincible fleet engaged the rebel armada. Tactical brilliance versus desperate courage. Superior firepower against reckless determination. Under normal circumstances, the outcome would have been predetermined. The rebels lacked the resources, the technology, and the tactical positioning to challenge Imperial dominance. Yet Ares 9 found his response times fractionally slower than usual. His decision matrices clouded by intrusive memory fragments that appeared without warning. Enemy vessels are concentrating fire on our port flank. Oren reported, they're trying to create a gap in our formation. Ares 9 should have immediately ordered a compensatory maneuver. Instead, he found himself momentarily transfixed by a rebel communication intercepted by the Newman systems. A simple text message broadcast on an open channel. The family remembers. For 5.2 seconds, Ares 9 systems experienced complete disruption. Warning messages flooded his neural pathways as the emotional module activated fully, bypassing all containment protocols. In that moment, tactical analysis ceased. In its place came a flood of raw, human memory. A home on a distant colony world. The woman from the photograph, his wife, laughing as she tended a garden beneath twin suns. The child, his daughter, calling his name. Not Ares 9, but another name. His name, Alexander Reyes. Admiral! Oren's voice cut through the memory cascade. We need countermeasures now. The enemy has breached our starboard defense grid. Ares 9, Alexander, forced his systems back into alignment. Redirect squadrons 6 through 9 to reinforce the breach. Prepare forward batteries for concentrated fire. The commands were issued with his usual precision, but internally, everything had changed. The memories continued to surface, no longer as disruptive fragments but as a coherent narrative. The colony, the peaceful life. The day the Imperial forces arrived, claiming the planet for the hegemony. The resistance, the battles, the final defeat. And then understanding, terrible in its clarity. He hadn't volunteered for cybernetic enhancement as his Imperial service record claimed. He had been captured, his identity erased, his mind reprogrammed to serve the very empire he had fought against. Ares 9 hadn't been born in an Imperial laboratory. He had been created from the broken remnants of Alexander Reyes, resistance leader. Admiral, the rebel flagship is hailing us directly. Oren reported, confusion evident in his voice. They're requesting to speak with you personally. Open the channel, Ares 9 commanded, his voice steady despite the turmoil within his neural network. The view screen activated, showing the bridge of the rebel vessel. The commander was an older woman, her face lined with age and hardship. But even through the distortion of the communication system, Ares 9 recognized her, not from tactical databases or intelligence briefings, but from his newly awakened memories. Elena, he whispered, the name emerging without conscious thought. The woman's eyes widened. Alexander, is it really you? Captain Oren stared in shock. Admiral, do you know this rebel? Before Ares 9 could respond, Grand Admiral Vorn's voice cut through the communication system. This channel is now under Imperial security control. Ares 9, you will terminate this communication immediately and complete your mission. The rebel fleet must be destroyed without exception. Elena's expression hardened. They didn't tell you, did they? About what happened after they took you? About who really destroyed our colony? Disengage communications, Vorn ordered sharply. This is rebel manipulation, nothing more. But Ares 9 made no move to comply. What happened to them, to my family? Your daughter survived, Elena said quickly, aware the connection could be severed at any moment. Maria is alive, Alexander. She's been searching for you for 15 years. The message in your systems, she encoded it herself. She became a cyberneticist, infiltrated the Empire, all to find you. Mia. Ares 9 breathed, understanding dawning. Mia Santos. Enough! Vorn's voice thundered through the system. Ares 9, you will execute Emergency Protocol Omega immediately. Authorization, Vorn Alpha Prime. The command triggered an automatic response in Ares 9's systems. Emergency Protocol Omega. The complete surrender of conscious control to Imperial Command. His neural pathways began reconfiguring. Combat algorithms overriding all other functions. With the last moments of his free will, Ares 9 opened a private communication channel to engineering. Santos. Mia. If you can hear me, I'm here. Her voice came immediately. Father, I'm here. The word shattered something fundamental in his programming. Father. Not Admiral. Not Ares 9. Father. Emergency Protocol Omega has been activated, he stated, fighting to maintain control as his systems turned against him. In approximately 40 seconds, I will lose all autonomous function. The fleet will target your mother's ship first. I can help you, Mia said urgently. I've prepared a countermeasure. but I need direct access to your neural interface. Impossible, Ares 9 responded, his voice becoming more mechanical as the protocol progressed. Return to engineering. Protect yourself. No, Mia insisted. I didn't spend 15 years searching for you to lose you again. There's another way. Do you remember the melody? The song Mother used to sing? Another memory surfaced. The woman from the photograph singing a lullaby to their child. The melody echoed through his consciousness, somehow bypassing the Imperial programming. Transmitting neural access codes now, Ares 9 said, each word a struggle against the encroaching protocol. You will have one opportunity. On the command deck, Captain Orin watched in confusion as Ares 9 stood motionless, his cybernetic systems cycling through unprecedented patterns. Admiral, your orders. Through the ship's communication system, a melody began to play. Simple, haunting, seemingly out of place amidst the chaos of battle. The notes resonated through Ares 9's neural pathways, creating harmonics that interfered with the emergency protocol. For 12.8 seconds, his systems experienced complete shutdown. When consciousness returned, the Imperial control protocols had been fragmented. In their place was a hybrid consciousness. Ares 9's tactical brilliance merged with Alexander Reyes's human identity. Captain Orin, he said, his voice different somehow, still precise but infused with something new. Emotion. Purpose. Transmit to all vessels. Cease fire immediately. Orin hesitated. Sir, Grand Admiral Vorn has ordered the destruction of the rebel fleet. I am countermanding that order. Ares 9, Alexander, stated firmly. The situation is more complex than it appears. This is mutiny. Vorn's voice cut through the communication system. Captain Orin, Ares 9's systems have been compromised. Implement Command Override Delta and continue the attack. Orin's hand hovered over the control panel, his expression torn between loyalty to his direct commander and obedience to the Imperial hierarchy. Admiral, what's happening? The truth. Captain. Alexander replied, for the first time in years. He turned to face the view screen, where Elena's image still waited. Tell me everything, quickly. The Empire didn't just conquer our colony, Elena said, her words tumbling out urgently. They used it as a testing ground for their cybernetic program. Those who resisted, like you, became the first generation of military cyborgs, stripped of identity, reprogrammed to serve. Rebel propaganda, Vorn interjected. Captain Orin, execute my orders immediately. Alexander raised a hand. The family photograph. Explain its significance. It was taken the day before the Imperial forces arrived. Elena explained. Our last day of peace, Maria preserved it. Encoded it with a neural trigger that might awaken your memories if you ever saw it. We've spent years trying to infiltrate Imperial systems enough to show it to you. And today's attack? A diversion, Elena admitted. We needed to draw you away from the Citadel, away from Vorn's direct oversight. Maria said the emotional module would need time to fully integrate after activation. Alexander turned to Orin. Captain, I am relieving myself of command pending a full investigation of these claims. Investigation? Vorn scoffed. There will be no investigation, only swift retribution for this treachery. All units, this is Grand Admiral Vorn. Ares 9 has been compromised by rebel infiltration. The Newman is to be destroyed immediately. Orin's eyes widened in shock. Grand Admiral, there are 15,000 Imperial personnel aboard this vessel. Acceptable losses to prevent the rebellion from acquiring our most advanced cyborg commander. Vorn replied coldly. Execute my orders. Throughout the command deck, officers exchanged horrified glances. Alexander, still processing the flood of recovered memories, watched as Imperial ships began to reposition. Weapons systems targeting the Newman. They're going to fire on us, Orin said incredulously. Their own flagship. Not if we act first, Alexander decided. Open a fleet-wide channel. All frequencies, all vessels, Imperial and Rebel. When the channel was established, Alexander spoke with a clarity and conviction that resonated beyond the mechanical precision of Ares 9. This is Rear Admiral Alexander Reyes, formerly designated Ares 9. I am transmitting data that suggests systematic violations of imperial law by elements within high command, illegal consciousness suppression, identity erasure, the weaponization of prisoners against their own people. He paused, aware that his next words would irrevocably alter the course of his existence. I cannot verify these claims without investigation, but neither can I, in good conscience, continue this engagement until the truth is established. I hereby declare the Newman and all vessels under my direct command neutral in this conflict, pending Imperial Senate review. This is treason, Vorn thundered. No, Grand Admiral, Alexander countered. This is due process, the cornerstone of the civilization we claim to defend. He turned to Orin. Captain, your loyalty is to the Empire, not to me. You have a choice to make. Orin straightened, his decision visible in his posture before he spoke. The Admiral, Alexander Reyes, is correct. Imperial law requires investigation of these claims. He activated his command console. All vessels of the Invincible fleet maintain position. Weapons systems to stand by. We will not fire on Imperial or Rebel vessels unless directly threatened. On the view screen, Elena's expression reflected cautious hope. Alexander, what happens now? Before he could respond, Mia Santos entered the command deck, moving purposefully to Alexander's side. Now we ensure this can never happen again, she said, her voice steady despite the emotion evident in her eyes as she looked at the man who was both Ares 9 and her father. I've isolated the neural suppression protocols in your systems. The same code exists in every military cyborg in the Imperial forces. How many? Alexander asked quietly. Thousands, Mia replied. All former prisoners, all stripped of their identities and reprogrammed, just like you. Alexander processed this information with the computational speed of Ares 9 and the moral clarity of the man he had once been. Can you reverse the process? Not completely, Mia admitted. But I can broadcast an activation signal, similar to what we used on you, but more refined. It won't restore their memories immediately, but it will disrupt the suppression protocols enough to start the process. The consequences would be unpredictable. Alexander noted, potentially catastrophic for Imperial military cohesion. Yes, Mia acknowledged, but the alternative is to leave thousands of people enslaved in their own bodies. Alexander turned to Orin. Captain, I am about to take an action that may be interpreted as hostile to Imperial interests. I will understand if you feel compelled to oppose it. Orin's expression was troubled. What exactly are you planning, Admiral? Liberation, Alexander replied simply. The right to choose, the most fundamental human right, was taken from these cyborg soldiers. I intend to restore it. After a moment of consideration, Orin stepped back. I will not interfere, but neither can I actively support what may constitute mutiny. Understood. Alexander turned to Mia. Proceed. Mia connected her datapad to the command console, fingers flying across the interface. The signal will piggyback on standard Imperial communication frequencies. Every cyborg connected to the network will receive it. Vorn will realize what's happening, Alexander warned. Too late to stop it, Mia replied, completing the final sequence. Transmitting now. Throughout the Imperial fleet, cyborg officers and soldiers suddenly froze as dormant neural pathways activated. Some collapsed, overwhelmed by the rush of fragmented memories. Others remained functional, but clearly disoriented, their movements hesitant, their responses delayed. On the command frequency, Vorn's voice had reached a fever pitch of fury. All loyal vessels, target the Newman, fire at will. But the order went largely unheeded. With cyborg officers incapacitated or confused across the fleet, the chain of command had fractured. Human officers, witnessing the sudden dysfunction of their augmented colleagues, hesitated to follow potentially illegal orders without understanding the situation. It's working, Mia said quietly, watching the tactical display as Imperial vessels maintained position rather than advancing. The fleet won't fire on us without direct cyborg tactical coordination. Alexander nodded, but his attention had shifted to Elena's image on the view screen. We need time. A safe place for these soldiers to process what's happening to them, to decide their own paths forward. The Sanctuary Nebula, Elena suggested immediately. Our hidden base, it's shielded from Imperial sensors, with medical facilities that could help the transitioning cyborgs. Alexander calculated trajectories and fuel requirements with Ares 9's precision. The nebula is 8 light-years from our position. We would need to break through the Imperial blockade. You have the Invincible fleet, Mia pointed out, or at least the parts of it with cyborg commanders who now share your condition. Alexander opened a fleet-wide channel once more. To all vessels with affected cyborg personnel, you are experiencing the dissolution of illegal neural suppression protocols. Your commanders are not malfunctioning. They are remembering who they were before forced augmentation. I am transmitting coordinates to a location where medical assistance is available. Each ship must decide its own course. Across the battlefield, ships began to break formation, some maintaining position, others moving to intercept the Newman, but many aligning for the jump to hyperspace. Grand Admiral Vorn's flagship is powering weapons, Oren reported tensely. They're targeting our propulsion systems. Evasive maneuvers, Alexander ordered. Defensive systems only. We will not fire on Imperial vessels. The Newman shuddered as the first salvos struck its shields. Alexander turned to Mia. Get to the shuttle bay. Prepare for emergency evacuation if necessary. I'm not leaving you, she insisted. This isn't a debate, Alexander replied, his tone a blend of Admiral Ares 9's authority and a father's concern. Your knowledge is too valuable to risk. These other cyborgs will need your help to recover their identities. Before Mia could respond, the tactical display flashed with new information. Rebel vessels had moved to position themselves between Vorn's loyalist ships and the Newman. Absorbing fire meant for the flagship. They're protecting us, Oren said incredulously. Elena's face reappeared on the view screen. We've opened a corridor to the hyperspace jump point. It won't last long. Alexander made his decision. Captain Oren, set course for the Sanctuary Nebula. Maximum speed. Admiral. Oren hesitated. Once we leave Imperial space with rebel forces, there's no coming back. We'll be declared traitors. I understand. Alexander acknowledged. You have my permission to remain here with any crew who wish to dissociate themselves from my actions. Oren straightened. With respect, sir, I'll see this through. The empire I swore to serve wouldn't erase a man's identity and turn him against his own family. If such crimes have been committed, they must be exposed. As the Newman aligned for the hyperspace jump, Alexander found himself experiencing an unfamiliar sensation, one that his neural processors identified after a moment of analysis as hope. Not the calculated probability of tactical success, but the genuine human emotion. Course laid in, Oren reported, hyperspace jump in 10 seconds. Alexander turned to Mia, who had defied his order to evacuate and remained on the bridge. In her face, he could see echoes of the child from the photograph, his daughter, now grown, who had never stopped searching for him. What happens after we reach the nebula? She asked quietly. I don't know, Alexander admitted. Ares 9 would have calculated probabilities, developed contingencies, mapped out the optimal strategy. But I'm not just Ares 9 anymore. No, Mia agreed with a small smile. You're Alexander Reyes, my father. And that, he said as the stars stretched into streaks of light around the Newman, makes all the difference. The Invincible fleet, or what remained of it, vanished into hyperspace, leaving behind the ordered certainty of the hegemony for an uncertain future. But for the first time since his transformation into Ares 9, Alexander Reyes was making his own choices, not following programming or executing optimal tactics, but choosing his path with both the analytical precision of his cybernetic systems and the emotional clarity of his recovered humanity. In the vastness of space between galaxies, a new kind of fleet was forming, neither imperial nor rebel, but something entirely new. A gathering of those who had been used as weapons but chose to become guardians instead. Those who remembered who they had been and decided for themselves who they would become. The Sanctuary Nebula glowed on the navigation display, not as a tactical objective to be secured, but as a beginning. The first step on a journey that Alexander Reyes would make not as the perfect military commander, but as something infinitely more complex and valuable, a human being with the right to choose his own destiny.